Hi, and thanks for watching another instructional video for CSCI 1300. In this video, we will talk about converting a for loop to a while loop, and really what makes a for loop and a while loop different from each other in their structure. So imagine that you want to generate some sum, which would be like a number of inputs from the user through the terminal. So say you want to ask for 5 numbers, you want to add them up, and then you want to display the value back to the user. Well, we can do this with a for loop, and that's what we've done here in our main. We've declared a sum variable, which will be printed to the screen of the user after our loop terminates. You can see here that we have also declared an x variable. The x variable is where we will store temporarily the user-defined input before it is added to our sum variable inside of the loop body. And lastly, we also have a count to keep track of the number of entries that will be generated and asked for in the program. So if we run this program, let's see what happens. You can see that we get the prompt once for inputs. And the reason why it's only prompted once is because we put it right before the beginning of our loop. If we put it within our for loop, it would print every single time the loop iterates. And we don't really need that much printed to the screen, so we're going to enter 5 numbers. And you can see that our loop terminates once we enter 5 values, and that we print the sum of those numbers back to the user. So it's doing everything that we want it to do. But what if we wanted to do this with a while loop? How would we change this information around? Well, there's a couple of things that stay the same and a couple of things that change their location. We'll still use a count, we'll still use an x, and we'll still use a sum, and we'll still have 2 print statements, but we'll have to restructure everything so that it is usable in the while loop format. So say I declare, the first thing I'm going to do is I will take out the for loop here. I'm just going to comment it out and move it down to the bottom of the program where I'm not going to use it. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up some kind of a while loop structure. I'm not sure what I want to do yet. And the big thing here is, well, I need to keep track of a counter just like with the for loop. So that means that I should probably declare count outside of the loop before the loop starts. And I need to set up the terminating condition. We know that we want 5 specific inputs, and previously with our for loop, that was based on the number of count, on the variable count. Count was going between a value of 1 and a value of 5. So let's set count equal to 1 here instead of 0. We'll say that while count is less than or equal to 5. So when count reaches 5, we should have the same number of inputs for sum. And just like with the for loop, we do need to increment count. So notice that we have, was our first part of our for loop. This is declared outside of the while loop. The second part of our for loop, the terminating condition, is specified as a parameter of the while loop in the parentheses. And inside of the loop body, we need to increase count by 1 every time the loop executes. So you can see that they go into these 3 different parts of the for loop are now spread over 3 different areas. One is outside of the while loop, one is in the parentheses of the while loop, and one is within the loop body of the while loop. So with that being said, we could now do exactly the same thing that we did with the for loop. We need to gather input from the user, so that means that we need to use the cn command into the variable x. We'll also need to add that up into sum every time the loop executes, so we're going to have to add x every time the loop executes into sum, and then we're going to print the information back to the user. And notice the same thing applies with our cout statement. We want it to be printed once, so we print it right before the loop starts. And we have our output print statement, right after the loop executes or finishes. Alright, let's go ahead and run this and double check that we get the exact same output. Alright, we're going to enter 5 numbers, and you can see that we did the exact same process, but the main thing that was different here was that the initialization of the counter happens outside of the loop in a while loop. The terminating condition is the primary argument for the parentheses of the while loop, and we have to increment the counter within the loop inside of the loop body of the while loop, instead of having all of this declared up in the top in the for loop parentheses. That's all for now. Thanks, and happy coding.